through this process. They've been, so these leaflets are part of a national initiative, which they've been publicising and helping to promote across the whole of the UK, starting in Scotland. I believe we're the first leaflets in Surrey, but hopefully there will be more of these leaflets across different local authorities. So yeah, big thank you to IFAN, but also a big thank you to all the other organisations who I've been in touch with over the last few months. Thank you for answering my emails, for checking the details on the leaflet. And actually quite a few of you are here today, and I've invited some of you to speak. So we've got a really good mix of speakers from different organisations in the statutory and voluntary sector who are going to be talking about the wide range of support available to people in crisis, and kind of thinking through how we can work together more closely to create a more effective system of support for people in crisis. So I'll introduce each of the speakers as we go along. We've got about an hour together, so I've asked each of the speakers to try and keep strictly to 5 minutes each, so that we've got time for questions at the end. So if you have any questions as we go along, could you post them in the chat? And if possible, if you could identify a particular person that you want to answer those questions, and we'll gather those together and hopefully have 10, 15 minutes at the end for those questions. So yeah, with no further ado, just introduce our first speaker. So Jonathan Lees, who's the Managing Director of Epsom Your Food Bank. And he's going to be talking about how the leaflets fit into our vision for a poverty-free future for Surrey. So over to you, Jonathan.
Brilliant, thanks Tom, and welcome to everybody that's come. Really appreciate having the opportunity to share a few minutes. But it's also brilliant that there's so many of us that are interested in this. We launched the food bank in Epsom 10 years ago this year, and it horrifies me that we're still going 10 years later when we started it. I know some of the people on Zoom were involved in it then. We never believed it would still be going after 10 years. And that's been so difficult. And so something like this leaflet, worrying about money, is just so helpful to be able to put out there into the community and allow people to see it. I was doing BBC Radio Surrey this morning, and I talked about the leaflet and talked about the impact that COVID's had across our community. Yes, our vision is to create a poverty-free future, hopefully supporting people to get out of poverty, and therefore one day hopefully reducing the impact or the need of the food bank, and then leading to my desire, which is actually to close the food bank, because there isn't a need for it in Surrey. And things like this leaflet are helping people in that direction. We had so many people over that COVID period, especially when our numbers just absolutely exploded, that just did not know where to go to get help. And when the money runs out, and sadly it happens to many more people than I think talk about it, people, it's an embarrassing subject. When your money's really tight, the money's gone, what do you do? And for people, when it's a new experience, have no idea. And this leaflet, which obviously is going out to Epsom and Ewell, Mole Valley and Reigate and Banstead, it's just brilliant because it allows people to see, okay, what can you do? Where can you go and get help? How can you do that discreetly and without making it kind of like embarrassing, because it is embarrassing when you get caught in those situations. I always work on that mantra that cash is king. And as a food bank, we need to support people to be able to either, one, use their cash better, two, to be able to earn more cash. So actually, can we develop their economic viability? Or three, if they're on benefits, can we increase benefits, which obviously is a massive challenge, campaigning, can we work? If not, to support people to be able to use them more effectively. And when we go back to look at this leaflet, it talks about all those things. It talks about the ins and outs of it. It talks about the way people can get help, people can get assistance. And so as a food bank, we're massively behind it. We're really supportive of it. We're really pleased to be hosting with IFAN this event today, and pleased that there's so many people on it. And for us, as we work forward to create this poverty-free future for initiatives we're doing, we're looking at a pantry model in the local Epsom town centre. We're looking at how we can continue to help people, whether that's through other means of support, from furniture to accessing benefits to counselling to energy support, which is a chronic issue at the moment. That's brilliant. And this again is another tool in the toolbox to be able to help people to know where to go and what to do. So I'm not going to talk forever, because in one sense, it is what it is. It says what it says. We want to work towards closing our food bank. This is another important asset. I hope that you'll take it, use it, give it out, put it out wherever you can. And it will become a valuable tool for people in our community to know, if I do run out of money or money gets really tight, actually, that's somewhere I can go. That's somewhere I can get advice, and I can do it discreetly. It's not going to be embarrassing. I can actually face on, and we can encourage and support people to address what is going on in their life. So eventually we can actually create a poverty-free future in Surrey for every single resident, no matter who you are, where you're from. We can help people to go forward. So thanks for being on today. Thanks for your time. Hope you find it really interesting. And thanks, Tom, for hosting.
Brilliant. Thank you for that, Jonathan. Our next speaker is Maria Marshall from IFAN. So they've been our partners in helping us to get the leaflet up and running, and she's going to tell us a bit more about the leaflets.
Thanks so much, Tom. Thanks, everyone. I'm Maria Marshall from the Independent Food Aid Network, or IFAN for short. IFAN is a network of over 500 independent food aid providers across the UK. And like the Trussell Trust, our vision is of a society that doesn't have the need for food aid. So I'm going to talk a bit more about the context of IFAN's work to support the co-development of these cash first referral leaflets, or the Worrying About Money leaflet. Thanks so much, Tom. So the co-production of these leaflets is rooted in what's called a cash-first approach to food insecurity. So by that, I mean a cash-first approach aims to address the poverty behind food bank use through income-based solutions, which look to address kind of those long-term reasons why people are facing financial crisis. So a little bit more on the cash-first approach. So this is an infographic that was produced by IFAN. It shows the different potential responses to food insecurity, prioritising this cash-first approach that hopefully is going to address the underlying causes. So at the top, you see the ideal, obviously, which would be adequate benefit payments, fair wages and secure work. You know, this means that everybody's got adequate income to choose and afford their own food, and society doesn't need food aid. But obviously, in the meantime, there are other strategies that promote cash, such as statutory cash grants, which are an essential element of a functioning social security system. You know, you've also got shopping vouchers, which can be considered a step up from a food parcel in terms of allowing people more choice. And then, you know, you have a food parcel, which no matter how dignified the services that's giving it, on its own isn't going to be able to address that underlying root problem of poverty. So it's in this kind of wider context then that the leaflet work is looking to promote cash first at a local level. And if you just move on to the next slide, Tom, thank you. So the leaflet work started in the summer of 2020 in Scotland. It's now also extended to England and Wales, and there's leaflets published in over 50 local authorities with work underway in about 60 more. And the layout of these leaflets is based on learning from the A Menu for Change project in Scotland. The language was developed in conjunction with experts by experience to be as clear and concise as possible for somebody who's in financial crisis. It's a 3-step guide that connects people to local support and helps them access their financial entitlements and maximise their income. And it can also be used as a tool for volunteers and frontline workers that are looking to connect people to support. So if you just move on, Tom, to the first slide there. So sorry that it's a little bit small, but you can also view this online. This is the leaflet for Mole Valley. So you can see the step system here. So on the first page, you've got, you know, step 1, what's the problem? Gives you 4 examples of problems you might be facing and examples of what that might look like. And then by each problem, it's got these option numbers, which if you move on to step 2, it's going to link you into these options, these 6 kind of main options, cash first options that might be available to you. And then in step 3, you've got the local support agencies, and we've indicated next to each of the main agencies there, exactly which options on the leaflet they're going to be able to support you with. So hopefully this is a really clear way to kind of build a pathway through what's the problem to, okay, what options are there, and who can I contact to talk about them. And then if you click through the next few slides, Tom, I'll just say as well, there's on the back of the leaflet, there's an other support section. So this has got some of the more kind of holistic support agencies. You might have things like housing advice and mental health services, things that are kind of like around cash, but maybe not just the specific financial advice. And then if you move through the next few slides, these are the content for the leaflet by Epsom and Ewell, and then also Reigate and Mansfield as well, working on the same principle, but with obviously the different local agencies. And we've also got alternative versions of the leaflets, so it's really important to make them as accessible as possible. So it's really important to us to have the printed paper leaflets, because obviously not everybody's going to have access to view them online. But we've also got this interactive digital version that's just been developed. So I'll put the links to that in the chat later. The ones for Mole Valley and Epsom and Ewell up and running, and we're just finishing the one for Reigate and Mansfield at the moment. And that's it. It's the same information, but you can click through, you can select the problems, and it's a little bit more interactive in that way. We've also been providing translated versions where they're needed in different areas, as well as posters. So just really making sure that the information is as accessible as possible in all these different formats. So it's really important in this work that we engage with referral agents to local food aid organisations, and that's proven really vital to the leaflet project. So ideally, the leaflet's going to work to interrupt these default referral pathways sometimes that are sending people to the food bank, and help people access that advice maybe before they need food aid. So agents can include things like schools and GP surgeries. For example, in some areas, the NHS have been hosting the leaflet on pages for their staff and volunteers. And this image here is from the Scotsen impact report on the leaflet work in Scotland. And these are all of the different areas that the leaflets are found to be used. Another piece of work that has come out of the leaflet work, which I'll talk about at the end of the session today, is the Money Counts training course. So this was developed by the stakeholders in Highland. They developed a short training course linked to the Worrying About Money leaflet for frontline staff and volunteers, just to kind of help people get more confident in having those conversations about money worries. The woman that runs the session was telling me, in the NHS, you've got these frontline workers who are often asking people really intimate questions about their health, but felt really uncomfortable having conversations about money. So it's to kind of build that confidence, and that Money Counts course has been replicated in a number of different areas. And we are gathering interest. There'll be a chance to register your interest later and having a similar sessions. And if you just go back a second, Tom, sorry. And so just to finish, these are 3 perspectives from the Scotsen impact report on the Worrying About Money leaflets, published in November last year, with interviews from people in different sectors that had used the leaflets. So you can see these 3 perspectives here. The local authority said that the leaflet had been a great tool for health visitors to kind of build an action plan for families, and they weren't spending a lot of time having to research these different agencies because all the information was in one place. And the third sector said it was a great tool for maybe staff and volunteers who are a bit newer to the role. And then finally, the food aid providers who found that it was really good to build the confidence of their volunteers, who, they said they're not trained advisors and they're not trying to be trained advisors, but they want to feel more confident that they're sending people to the right place. So to conclude, the Worrying About Money leaflets have been starting conversations, at a local authority level between different services about how to direct people in a strategic way towards support that's going to help them in the long term. They help empower people, both people who might be using the tool for themselves, but also frontline workers and volunteers that want to offer support. And finally, they help us work together, like we are today, to help shift the focus away from emergency food aid as that first response, and create these strategic approaches, which is going to demand more of the government and statutory bodies to create this long-term and income-based solutions to food insecurity. And thanks so much. I'll hand back to Tom now. On this slide here, you can see the links where you can view the leaflets and where you can order hard copies. But don't worry about writing these down. We'll putting these in the chat and sending them out afterwards as well.
Yeah, Brilliant. Thanks very much indeed, Marin. And yeah, Jen, if you wouldn't mind posting those links in the chat so that people can access that in their own time. So our next speaker is someone called Alan Price, who was involved in our first Poverty Truth Commission. And this was a really exciting initiative where we were involving people with direct experience of using the food bank and working with other local agencies to try and co-design solutions to some of the issues that they were facing. And actually one of the, well, we'll find out from Alan, but one of the findings that came out of the Poverty Truth Commission was the fact that people in crisis often don't know where to go for help in a crisis. So Alan, could you tell us a bit more about your experience, well, a bit more about the Poverty Truth Commission and how you got involved and how it's kind of led to where we are now?
Yeah, thanks very much for asking me to talk, and good morning, everyone. My name is Alan. I'm a recovering alcoholic addict. I have severe mental health issues, and being part of the Poverty Truth Commission really just gave me a great sense of purpose, and to thank Jonathan and the team at the food bank for giving me that opportunity was pretty amazing. So the Poverty Truth Commission was kind of created on the back of increasing number of people needing food parcels. And I remember Jonathan saying to me once, you know, the stories that people were telling just made him kind of think about, so what does poverty actually look like in Epsom and Ewell? What can we do about it? Does it exist? And out of that formed this Poverty Truth Commission. So you have a number of civic commissioners. So these are people with lived experience around poverty. And you have business commissioners who are organisations who are interested in seeing change in their communities. So the commission lasted 18 months. We had lots of fantastic meetings, came up with some really, really good, tangible results. And as Tom said, one of those was on a mental health support group. We wanted to give people access to information around where they can get help in their local community. So I've experienced poverty from a childhood, as a young man and as a father. I found myself in severe amounts of debt, and through the good work of Christians Against Poverty, I was able to clear all of my debt. I'm now debt free and have been for about two and a half years. I think if I had access to these leaflets back then, yeah, who knows, my life could have maybe got better a bit sooner. You know, to have something that's easy to access, it's got all of the contact details of what you want. I think it can only be good for people who are in need of help. I would say that from my point of view, it's all about getting the leaflets though in people's hands, you know, so they actually know that they exist. There's a lot around, isn't there? You know, oh, look what we've done. This is a great piece of work. But we've got to get those leaflets out and about in those three areas as much as we can. You know, I think looking back when I started speaking to Christians Against Poverty, I knew that my issues were more than just financial. They were mental health issues. I was, you know, another relationship that had failed. I'd been put into hospital. So, you know, poverty is just an umbrella, and underneath it are so many factors. So if we can give people access to organisations that can help, who knows, we hopefully will be able to, you know, really see change in our local community.
Brilliant. Alan, thank you so much indeed for sharing that and sharing your experience. And actually, we're going to hear now from some of those, one or two of those business or civic commissioners from some of the organisations that are working locally to help people in crisis in all sorts of different ways. So our next speaker is Lisa Davis, who's the Chief Exec of Citizens Advice Epsom and Ewell, and she's going to be talking about the need for a cash first and advice approach to poverty. Over to you, Lisa.
Thanks, Tom. Good morning, all. Lovely to see everyone this morning. So as Tom just outlined, I'm Lisa Davis, CEO at Citizens Advice Epsom and Ewell. I hope a lot of people know what we do, but just a bit of a brief overview of our services. We provide information and advice on a range of matters. I think those that we're most known for are probably benefits and debt, but it goes, so much more further than that in terms of housing, employment, consumer issues, family matters, immigration. I tend to think most things we can probably help people with, or if we can't, we will definitely signpost to those that are better placed to help. Other services that we provide, we have a specialist mental health team, and they will provide support for those individuals suffering from severe and enduring mental health conditions. And effectively what we're doing there is bringing the service to those who can't access it to us in the normal way. So we will go out on outreach into the community, and we will go on to psychiatric wards and provide that advice to those individuals. We also support those people that need just a little bit more in terms of debt. So we have specialist debt caseworkers, and we do that in conjunction with Rosebery Housing Association. So we are able to support those individuals in the community. I think some key takeaways right at the beginning is just to say we are completely free, because sometimes people don't know that. We are confidential and we are impartial. So if you come in through the doors, we will help. Your information is confidential and there's no charge to you. I really just wanted to start off by thanking Tom and Jonathan, because as Alan just outlined, being part of the Poverty Truth Commission, this was one of the key sort of takeaways that we had, that this sort of information wasn't readily available, where individuals in the community would know all of the support that's available. So it's actually quite timely and quite an opportune time. Looking at our own data, it really backs up a lot what Alan says. So, for example, our data states that 60% of people stated that they had difficulty knowing who to contact when in crisis, which is really, really concerning. I think even more concerning than that is that some 80% of those of people say that their problem regularly impacted their lives. So again, it links in with Alan's point about it. It wasn't just about money, it's about other things that's happening in someone's life that's really having a negative impact. So I think having the leaflet and having the information there and accessible is really helpful. Some other information that we've sort of gleaned from our data, we know that 30% of people that come to us are unfortunately already in a state of severe crisis. So what that could mean is bailiffs are at the door, they have final notice demand letters that are coming through that are unopened, there might not be any food on the table. And of course, we can help, and we can help them there and then, but without unlocking the reason that they're there, or the reason for the crisis, we're not really dealing with the underlying issues. And unfortunately, what that means, or what that would result in, is that that individual will come back to us probably very soon. Those problems will escalate. And again, their mental health, unfortunately, may worsen. And this is why for us, definitely understanding and knowing the help that's out there that can support you. And obviously, I'm one of the 3 Citizens Advice that this leaflet covers. So we also have Moore Valley and we also have Reigate and Banstead. So between the 3 of us, surely there'll be someone that can assist. So how can we help? Well, we can assess whether or not you are receiving all of the help and the financial income that you should be. I don't know if anyone watched the Martin Lewis program recently, but it was stated there that some 7 million people are missing out on benefits that they're entitled to, which is quite a staggering figure. We can also help you to manage proactively. So looking at how can we put you on a path forward, looking at payment plans, budgeting advice, how to provide advice on changing suppliers, for example, and supporting you through that process. So we're not just giving you that advice, but you can come back and we can continuously support you to be able to manage proactively. So I think those things obviously help, but more than that, I think one of the key benefits, and again, it links into Alan's point of view around the sort of qualitative benefits that come about when you are when you are supported in this way. So we found that our clients stated that they feel a lot more confident, they feel more knowledgeable about handling certain situations or certain problem situations in the future. They also feel that they have a lot more flexibility and choice and autonomy, and I think that's really, really important. Just to wrap up, just two other things that I think people need to know that we can help with. We do have access to hardship funds. We have relationships with parochial trusts in the local area, so we can link in for those individuals. Sometimes we help to pay for school uniforms, white goods, removals. And a further thing that we help with is through our partnership with Yule Rotary, we can help individuals that are in fuel poverty and that actually aren't able to pay their gas and energy. So I think for me, the main point just to get across is that what we want to do is to ensure that we're not just solving the problem for the day, but we're actually providing individuals with a toolkit to empower themselves so that going forward, they know how to act and what's available when they're faced with crisis. Thanks, Tom.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. I'm slightly embarrassed having previously volunteered for systems advice, but they do absolutely fantastic work. So thank you for all the stuff that you do. Our next speaker is Lenny Roberts-Flanders, who's the Wellbeing Advice and Information Officer for Mary Frances Trust, who are a large local mental health charity. And she's going to be talking about the need for holistic support. So picking up on some of the issues that Alan talked about earlier. So I'm having problems with the slides, as you probably noticed. But
Okay. I've been working at Mary Frances Trust for nearly 20 years now, and our approach to working with clients is to look at everything that's happening to them. So that's supporting them with their mental health, supporting them with their finances, their housing, trying to work with them to find support to if they need to find a job, referring them on, and generally trying to support the whole person rather than just targeting one area. So I think for me, the majority of the work that I do is concerned with people trying to claim other benefits. So I help them with forms, I help them with appeals, I help them go to tribunals. I've helped lots of people look at their budgets and, referred them on to organisations who can support them further within, within our collaboration of organisations. And I've also, the most helpful thing over the last 12 months has been that I've been able to form relationships with the disability employment officers at the job centres in the areas that we cover. And so that's been really helpful in resolving some of the problems that people experience, with non-payment, where they've been sanctioned, they don't know why the money's been stopped, the delays in getting money through to them. And I think, the other side of things is that people have to wait 2 or 3 months to get decisions about different things. So that's obviously a problem. And the other side of things is many of the things that are listed on the leaflet, like warm home discounts and other help to reduce their bills, which people just for whatever reason aren't told about. I think the other side of things is that a lot of people I work with don't have digital access, and although there's a very good project at Surrey Coalition now to help people with that, people are still reliant on putting notes in the journal, and for some people that's just not possible. So for me, it's about trying to improve people's access to services that will help them. That's about it, really. So it is, I spend all of my time as much as I can trying to help people, and as an organisation we do that, but I think if we all collaborate together, then we can help people far more and provide them with a better service. Thanks very much.
Fantastic. Thanks very much indeed, Lenny. I think we Trussell Trust recently did a piece of research that showed that something like 60% of the people coming to food banks have got mental health problems. So it's a massive issue, certainly for our clients. And so that need for holistic support and making sure people get mental health support alongside other financial support is really crucial. Our next speaker, Angela Ellis, is the head of community investment and partnerships at Raven Housing Trust. She was also on our Property Truth Commission, and she's going to be talking about the importance of collaborative working in preventing and helping people out of poverty, and talking about some of the things they've been doing at Raven. Over to you.
Thanks, Tom. Hi, everybody. So as Tom said, I work for Raven Housing Trust. So we have 6,000 homes across East Surrey and beyond, actually, now. So just to say, we've definitely seen a considerable increase in customers who are suffering from hardship over the last kind of 18 months to 2 years. Obviously, the impact of COVID, but also particularly now, the increase in the cost of living is really affecting our customers. We have a community investment team at Raven, and their overall goal, our aim is to try and make sure that Raven residents are able to afford to live well in their Raven home. So the work that we do as a community investment team is around supporting people into work, helping them to get online and making sure that they've got the digital kit for that, laptops and tablets. We prevent eviction, and also there's our MoneyWise team who are featured in the leaflet. Our MoneyWise team are there to support Raven residents with things like benefits applications, benefit appeals, looking at income and expenditure, so helping people to budget. They do charity grants on behalf of clients, including Raven's own hardship fund, food bank referrals, to name but a few of the services that they offer all around managing money. But what we do at Raven wouldn't be possible without our community partners. So some of the agencies that we work really closely with are people like Stripey Stalk, local food banks, districts and boroughs, the YMCA, Ezra, ESDAS, to name but a few. And it's really, it's not possible to solve these huge issues of poverty without our agency partners. It needs to be a collective effort. So just as an example, one of the pieces of work we're involved in at the moment is it's led by Reigate and Banstead, but who've pulled together all of the money advice agencies and food banks to look at how we can reduce food bank usage in the borough, and that is starting off with some conversations with food bank users about their experiences and kind of how what their ideal would be. And just to say, as Tom mentioned, I was one of the Poverty Truth Commission commissioners, lucky enough to be part of that group, which is an amazing experience. But something that really influenced some of the decisions at Raven was hearing from that group about how expensive it is to set up home. So those moving costs and then the decoration costs, furnishing a home is incredibly expensive, and it can push people further into debt, which then has a knock-on effect of then people not being able to pay their rent, and they get into kind of this spiral of debt. So using some of the feedback from the Poverty Truth Commission and some of the research that we did at Raven, we set up something called our Settling In service, which has been going for 9 months now. We've just extended it for a year, an extra year, so it will end March 23. And basically, we are providing up to 12 weeks of support for customers who are moving into Raven properties, right from the point of where they view the property to 12 weeks after they've moved in. And it's all about making sure they've got the right furniture, that their direct debits are set up, that they're accessing all the benefits they're entitled to, lots of applications for charity grants as well. And what we've seen is quite a significant reduction in people's arrears and an increase in their ability to manage their tenancy and be more financially stable, which is great. But yeah, again, you know, that kind of partnership work with the Poverty Truth Commission and understanding more about the causes of poverty has really influenced what we've done at Raven. Yeah, so that's back over to you, Tom.
Brilliant, Angela, thank you so much. And yeah, it has been really exciting seeing some of the outcomes from the Poverty Truth Commission and seeing how that's influenced the way that you're faced and how important it is to listen to people with experience of poverty or living in your housing, so that you really understand the issues they're facing from their perspective. And thank you very much, everybody, for our speakers for keeping time. We're doing really well so far. Our final speaker, Kerith Williams, is the Partnerships Officer for Reigate and Banstead Borough Council. And she's going to be talking about some of the interesting work they've been doing to create a more joined up approach to tackling food poverty. Over to you, Kerith.
Hi there, can you hear me okay? Yeah.
I'll get your slides up in a sec.
Right. Oh, don't worry, I don't need them. Okay, so as Tom said, my name's Kerith Williams. I work for the partnerships team at Reigate and Banstead Council. I just want to give you a very brief overview of how we work in partnership to address residents' needs. Here we go. Okay, so some ways that we work together. So we do have a community development team, and they work in areas of high need to bring together the voluntary sector through quarterly partner network meetings, working jointly on a local action plan and allowing for organisation and partner updates. So this means that all our partners are working together, know what is happening in the area and who to refer to, so that really helps. Partnerships officers work with money advice partners in the borough to maintain and develop the local offer. So we work closely with community debt advice, with citizens advice. We have monitoring meetings every quarter to discuss challenges and trends and the need for advice. This gives us a lot of insight into what's going on. We do also have our own money support team that is for internal referrals and for self-referrals. So our money support team is mainly for budgeting advice. It's for that initial money advice, and they work closely with CDA then to help people with more complex debt issues. Another thing we do is we hold a quarterly forum for frontline professionals to meet with the DWP. As Lenny was saying, it's really important to have that contact at the DWP so that we can get advice on benefit claims. That's all the problems that come with making a claim, changing circumstances, getting all those additional payments through. We also, where we can, get expert speakers updates on best practice and changes in legislation. Okay, do you want to move on then, Tom? Thanks.
I will do. Keep talking.
Okay,
it's not quite working.
Okay, so with regards to food provision, the way we support is through, one of the ways that we support is through food clubs, which are set up in these community development areas to provide sustainable long-term food support. And this is food that retailers might otherwise dispose of. including good quality fresh food, which is something that food banks aren't always able to provide, isn't it? So the annual membership for these food clubs is just £1, and a weekly shop, that's a couple of full carrier bags, is about £2. Is £2 only, so very accessible and really popular. You know, the clubs are growing. So the food provision group that we run was established pre-pandemic and brings together food banks to strengthen partnership working and meet local need. So this allowed for an integrated response during the crisis, which meant that we could centralise food referrals and support distribution between food banks all across the borough. And we also have a money advice and food bank group, as Angela mentioned, and we set this up in response to increasing long-term use of food banks during the pandemic. And the objective is to address the hidden consequences of poverty, such as worsening mental health, through effective referral pathways to support for every user. And like you say, we're going to begin with listening projects. So that's it, really. I think that's it. I'm happy to take any questions later.
Brilliant. Thanks very much indeed, Keris, and thank you to all our speakers. And I think it just demonstrates the kind of breadth of support that's available in this part of Surrey, and how lucky we are to have access to all of that. But I think one of the challenges is how we make sure that people know about the support that's available and help people to access it as easily as possible and as quickly as possible. So actually one of the reasons we know about all of the support available is through our wonderful group of support workers in the food bank. So we've got 2 people working pretty much full time, helping people who come to the food bank more regularly to access all the support that they need. And actually, because of, possibly because some of the difficulties in accessing support, it does need quite often quite a lot of hand holding to do that. And I guess part of the aim of this session today and of the leaflet is making sure that people can access that support on their own as far as possible, and they don't need quite so much hand holding as they do at the moment. So we now have about 10 minutes for questions. There have been a few questions in the chat, but we'll come to those first. So there was a question about the Household Support Fund. It was directed at me, but I don't think I'm the best person to answer it. So I'm gonna push it on to Lisa to start with, and if there's anybody else that wants to come in on that. So the question was, how easy, or alternatively, has it been difficult for people to access a new household support fund? I believe it's different in different areas, but if we could start with Lisa giving her experience in Epsom.
Thanks for that, Tom. The Household Support Fund grant, the way it works in Epsom is it's been done through a direct application to the Borough Council. I think I haven't had much sort of feedback in terms of how easy or difficult it is. We have helped people that needed the support to complete the forms, but it is one I can definitely share back with the group if we need a bit more detailed information in respect of it. But it is a direct application to our Epsom Newell Borough Council. And I believe that, yeah. Do we have anyone on the? I'm not sure if we have anyone from EEBC here today.
Not that I'm aware of, but Keris, do you want...
Rachel was on the call earlier, so she
Okay.
might know. If you see Rachel Kudnerasu, she was on it, if she's still on it.
Rachel, are you there? If not, I wonder if Keris could say something about how it works in Reigate.
Yeah. Hi everyone again. Yes, I did want to mention this actually, and I forgot to put it on the slide and forgot to say. So we've been distributing the Household Support Fund through grants to local partners who are able to identify those who are most in need, and then they've put bids together, sent them to us, and we've given them the appropriate funding. We also are doing supermarket vouchers of £100, and all the details are on our website, how this money is being allocated. So our residents are sometimes calling up the council, but if you look on the website, you'll see that we're working with our partners, CDA, CARB and Raven, to make sure that the money gets to those most in need.
Brilliant, thank you. Somebody's asked about, can we get hard copies? The answer is yes. I've got some large boxes sitting in my study at home. So please email me afterwards if you want some hard copies. But also fill in the form that Jen posted in the chat, where you can order copies. Then there was a question about from Sam about whether leaflets are suitable for people with no recourse to public funds or lack of a support network. Do any of our speakers fancy taking that one? That's obviously a much more tricky issue. Lisa, can I ask you to pick that one up again? Is that all right? Sorry to pick on you.
I might actually. I do have Karen also on the call. So Karen, are you there?
I am, yes. Yeah.
Are you able to help with that one?
I mean, yes, it does, because if I remember, it mentions 2 charities that can help people that have no recourse to public funds. I think it's Unity, and there was another one mentioned. And if I recall, those details are on the leaflet, and individuals with no recourse to public funds can contact them for both housing issues and issues with finance as well. But some of the funds that we have available would be okay for people that have no recourse to public funds because they're not public funds, such as the Wensless Fund and things like that, and going for grants to the parochial charities. And equally, our advice, people can come to us for advice, irrespective of, you know, their background or where they're from or anything like that. I hope that answers the question.
Thanks, Karen.
I can add a little bit about the hardship fund in Epsom as well, if people would like to know. It is it's been split into 2. There's the mandatory award and a discretionary award, and depending on whether you're part of a family or single, you can get a maximum amount. It is an online form. The form is very straightforward. It doesn't ask for any income or expenditure. I think it just asks for like an email address and I think your national insurance number and date of birth, and we have been helping people complete those forms. And I know the first lot of awards went out in January, and I believe there's more awards going out at the end of January as well.
Also, from our end, Tom, obviously in the food bank, we've had some of the access from household funds, and we've been supporting people that come into the food bank. And on top of that, us and the support team have been helping people to apply directly to it across the 3 boroughs. That's Mole Valley, Epsom and Ewell, and Reigate and Banstead. And then finally, even on the people with no access to public funds, again, some of our funds that we've been able to support people because again, it hasn't come through those routes. So we've been able to help people, and I think to an extent, even as the food bank network, we're quite independent and we're able to do things like that and support people and help people to escape poverty.
Brilliant. I'm just going to open it up to, I think there were some hands up. Now it's hard for me to see everybody on the call, but if somebody who had their hand up, there were a couple of raised hands apparently. Could one of you ask your question?
Yeah, I'm Tracy Morris. I work for Adult Social Care, the Community and Prevention team, and we do work in partnership with local organisations, and what we try and do is look at where there's gaps, and we get the feedback from our frontline adult social care social workers and teams of where people are really struggling. And coming out of the pandemic, we set up something called Brewing Friendships, which was 6 weeks worth of free support, including transport, to support people with developing IT skills, scam awareness, nutrition advice, fraud prevention, mental health and wellbeing, concentrating on managing stress, anxiety and bereavement. And it was really, really successful because a lot of organisation had gone online, but there was a lot of people who weren't online. So we felt it was absolutely key to supporting these people. This initiative has just been relaunched now. It's moved to the King's Church in Epsom, and it is being well received by the community. And there are gaps where people don't have the facility to learn IT, or they've been given a tablet or a computer by their family and they feel embarrassed to keep asking the same questions. So that is actually out there working successfully, can be referred into. We constantly promote it. We're also doing a project for veterans because, again, we sometimes get them in crisis because of their training and being quite resilient. They don't always ask for help when they need it. So they become, we see them in crisis a lot of the time. So we've got a lot of projects going on locally. And I know it's also happening in Guildford and Guildford as well is one of the areas we're doing. So anybody interested in finding out more, let us know. But we love working in partnership with our local organisations, and we do promote these things out. So if there are gaps that have been identified, we work really well with Citizens Advice, Food Bank. Jonathan's always really helpful. We get one-off people who, are really in crisis, and together as a community, all of the different charities have been quite proactive. So, I'm really grateful that I've been invited to attend this meeting, and just wanted to say thank you for that.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. Any other? I believe there was one other raised hand earlier, but I can't see it. Any other questions that people are dying to ask? While you're thinking, I just had a question really to throw out to any of you about people's, or if indeed there's anybody here from the Surrey Crisis Fund, but it'd be really interesting to hear about people's experience of applying or helping other people to apply to the Surrey Crisis Fund, because that's obviously meant to be a kind of key source of support for people in an acute crisis. Any sort of feedback on how that's people's experience of trying to apply for that? Just speak up if you've got any thoughts.
Sorry, I'm Helen Miller from Citizens Advice, Reigate and Banstead. Because the claims have to be done online now, obviously we get lots of clients who aren't able to do that. So we do quite often help clients to apply. And I would say that obviously we're fairly experienced about, knowing what they should apply for. So I guess we're putting in reasonable applications. But I would say that they do respond extremely quickly. Obviously, it's always an emergency, and they nearly always phone clients the same day, and then they can get the help often the following day.
And what sort of support is that for, Helen? Just to really for other people to kind of understand.
So forgive me because I haven't got the full list in front of me, but it will be emergency help with travel, for example, to a court hearing, with food, with toiletries, with emergency things for children. Previously, they've helped with things like white goods. They've really cut back on that because of funding. So they won't replace white goods anymore, but they will, I think I'm right in saying, if the client has had to move property, never had the white good in the first place, then they will help in an emergency.
Fantastic. And I think that's something that perhaps we could all be encouraged to kind of make greater use of, because it is there and it is meant to be the first port of call for people in crisis. I think we've got time for one final question before we wrap up. We're just going to tell you a little bit about the training options around the leaflet and how you can order copies. But is it any other questions?
There was a question about, are you going to put the leaflet into the schools and circulate it that way, or what you're thinking?
The answer is yes. So I think we're keen for the leaflet to be used as widely as possible, including GP surgeries, schools, housing associations, citizens advice bureaus, debt advice, anywhere where people who are in crisis are likely to be and come and have contact with. And it's, yeah, I think it is a particularly useful tool for organisations like schools that maybe don't have the information in their heads themselves. They're not experts, they're not meant to be experts on welfare rights advice, but they do come into contact with people who are struggling, and they may be the first people that people go to in a crisis, and therefore it's important that they're able to provide really good quality information on what support is available. And actually it's really a really useful tool for them. Which kind of brings me nicely on to the training that we're thinking of doing. I'm going to ask Maria just to say a bit more about that, because we're very keen that we empower. We have a lot of volunteers at the food bank, about 120 or so across our different centres. And obviously they're volunteers, they're not welfare rights advisors, but we want to empower them to be able to have conversations with a purpose with our clients, if appropriate, in order to identify and direct people to support that they may need. And we see the leaflet as a really useful tool in that process. So I'm just going to hand over briefly to Maria to talk a bit about the training. Is that okay? Yep, great.
Yes, so as Tom says, basically the training is it's been running in a few areas. Is 45 minutes to an hour. And it's usually a kind of session of about, I'd say, 20 to 30 people who are frontline workers and volunteers who just want to get a bit more confident approaching people about money. So it goes through the kind of cash-based response, and then techniques for approaching money worries conversations, and how to use the leaflet as a tool to kind of guide these conversations in your local area. We don't have any set dates at the moment for this kind of training in Surrey. What we do have is we've got a form just to register interest, so see if it's something that would be worth pursuing here. And then if people register interest, if you want to learn more, we'll be back in touch on that, and we'll send out that link afterwards. And I'm happy to put that in the chat as well.
Fantastic. Well, thanks very much. Brilliant timing. We have one more minute, so we have ended on time. Just to, so I put the links up here again, and hopefully they were in the chat, but please get in touch if you would like hard copies of the leaflet, or if you would like to express an interest in the Money Counts training session, or if you simply want a discussion about how we can work together to create a really good system of support for people in crisis. We'd like to kind of be part of that conversation. So yeah, thank you again for coming along. Just a couple of phrases that I wrote down from some of the things that our speakers said. So I think Lisa talked about not solving a problem for the day. So that's a big part of what we want to do. And I think Angela talked about it. It needs to be a collaborative effort. So they're two of the things that I've taken out of today. And I hope this will just be the beginning of a kind of conversation about how we can work together more effectively, starting with these leaflets. So thank you again for coming along, and thank you in particular to all of our speakers. Great, and enjoy the rest of the day. Bye. Hi.
Thanks, Tom. That was great. That was really great.
Is that all right? We finished on time. I was a bit worried, but actually the speakers were all really good. Yeah, it was
great. Such a slick operation, yeah, with all of us.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't call it slick. the PowerPoint was. I don't know if you gather, I couldn't scroll through the slides. So